welcome back to A Year of Final Fantasy, and we're going to revisit our job series again and talk about two of the more obscure mage classes and some of my favorite classes in Final Fantasy just due to their uniqueness. We're going to be talking about the Blue Mage and Time Mage today. There's a lot I'd like to talk about regarding the Blue Mage, and it seems like the Blue Mages are always the one to get sidelined in fantasy media at large, just for whatever reason. And I'm not just talking about Final Fantasy here. I mean, we can look at other different worlds or media properties, say Dragonlance, where there are white, black, and red-robed wizards, yet there are no mention of blue-robed wizards. Similarly, in, say, Middle-earth, there are mention of not one, but two blue-robed wizards, but pretty much they're just mentioned and then forgotten about completely in the books and even in the movies, the Hobbit movies.
Are there any?
What?
Other wizards?
There are 5 of us. The greatest of our order is Saruman, the white. Then there are the 2 blue wizards. You know, I've quite forgotten their names.
And, well, I mean, Final Fantasy at least goes a little bit further to incorporating these blue-robed mages into their game, so let's talk about them a little bit. Really, blue mages are, well, they deal with blue magic, obviously. You have white magic, which is healing. You have, well, you don't have red magic, but red magic is a combination of white and black. And then you have black magic, which is more destructive. Then you have blue magic, and this blue magic is allocated to enemies in the series. And to learn this magic, there are a few different ways, but generally speaking, much of the time, the character who is a blue mage needs to get hit with this enemy spell or skill or ability or whatever, and then they can learn it. And in some games, the blue mages actually also have the ability to control the monsters, not unlike, say, a summoner. And if you can control the monsters, you can make them use that magic on yourself to learn that ability. And beyond that, since blue mages are more, let's say, in the fray of battle, taking more physical damage than a normal mage would, they're a little bit tougher themselves. Their physical prowess is much higher than a regular white or black mage, maybe a little less than red mages, because red mages are kind of the jack of all trades, but they're up there. And to me, my personal favorite best depiction of a blue mage is probably in Final Fantasy XI, where blue mages really come into their own, taking a unique look, more of a Middle Eastern-y vibe with their headgear and cloaks while wielding scimitars. I mean, they're just awesome on every level. And it was really after Final Fantasy XI that I looked back at the series and realized so many missed opportunities that they had with blue mages, even though that they appear in some way, shape, or form from Final Fantasy V onward, even in the games that don't, let's say, explicitly have a job or mage class system. Many of the characters have blue mage abilities that you may be referred to as enemy skill abilities, such as Quistis from Final Fantasy VIII. Beyond that, Final Fantasy VII has the enemy skill materia. Final Fantasy X features Kamari, who has the ability to learn those different kind of blue magic attacks via his Lancet ability. And in Final Fantasy XIII, Lightning Returns, there's even a type of garb Lightning can wear that is blue mage. And I guess the most real blue mage that we get in a properly numbered Final Fantasy game would be Strago from Final Fantasy VI, who's actually labeled as a blue mage in some of the remakes or remasters, but honestly, he's not what I envision as a blue mage. He probably would have been really cool, but he's kind of past his prime, you know? So for Final Fantasy at large, it's one of the most prolific jobs that just we haven't gotten the blue mage that we deserve. One of the worst offenders to me personally, and I'm getting a little personal here, I try not to in these videos. These are meant to be informational, but you know, I like to insert my opinion every now and then. I think the biggest wasted opportunity was Quina or Kina or whatever you want to call him, or whatever, in Final Fantasy IX. I think a badass scimitar wielding blue mage with actual ties to the story would have been a perfect fit for that game, but no, we get Quina or Kina or whatever. I just, the potential lost just makes me weep, especially since it's the callback to the most classic eras of Final Fantasy, where we're given what is essentially a job system with characters and emotions tied to those jobs, but sadly it wasn't to be. So again, Blue Mage being one of the more iconic mages of the series, is just a shame that the class hasn't gotten the attention that it deserves in a real meaningful way, but we do know Square hasn't simply swept it away under the rug to be lost to history, because we do see them pop up in even recent games. So let me know your thoughts on a Blue Mage. Do you want them in the games? Do you think, you know, they're fine being as they are? Let me know in the comments below. It's just very much not a talked about class, and I'd love to hear your opinions on the Blue Mage. So next, let's shift our focus a little bit towards the other mage of the series that doesn't get its due, well, kind of, and that would be the Time Mage. The Time Mage is so interesting and is my personal third favorite class right alongside the Red Mage and Dragoon. Sometimes it, bumps up to number 1. I love Time Mages. And as you'd expect, the Time Mage deals with, well, time magic. More correctly, I'd probably rather call it cosmic magic though, as the Time Mage's spells range from time manipulation like stop, slow, haste, to more space-based cosmic spells like gravity, comet, and meteor. They operate in that little tiny realm of status affecting spells that are actually useful and they can do damage. So it's like crazy. I personally teach astronomy and astrophysics. It's kind of what I've dedicated my life to outside of YouTube. So it's pretty easy to see why this mage particularly interests me personally. And while we haven't really gotten a specific time mage in any of the major games, like I was complaining about the blue mage, that may not technically be true, because we do have one person that I'll talk about here in a little bit that kind of makes up for it. But anyway, the Time Mage itself is referenced quite a bit, but actually does appear in a more tangible way in the series more often than not, even compared to the Blue Mage. The first game that we really got the taste of Time Mage was in Final Fantasy V, as it is with most of these kind of obscure jobs. If you go back and look at all of my Final Fantasy V videos that I did in May, we do actually go over every single job presented in that game. So, if you want to learn more about jobs, definitely watch those videos. But we didn't see Time Mage again until we got Final Fantasy Tactics, which released, right around Final Fantasy VII, which was an incredibly welcome comeback, and in fact the Tactics series has made the Time Mage much more prominent than it normally probably would have been. But I think the biggest spotlight for the Time Mage is in Final Fantasy VIII, and which is why I wanted to talk about it this month. This is one of the times that I'm going to give you a spoiler warning, so here it is. For anyone that hasn't played Final Fantasy VIII, turn it off now if you don't want to see this spoiled, but it's too big of a thing to not talk about. Alright, we good? Well, in Final Fantasy VIII, the entire game revolves around Ultimecia, who controls time and space magic on an incredibly large scale, and actually ends up succeeding in her mission via time compression. One of the biggest, baddest enemies in the franchise is a Time Mage. Maybe not explicitly called a Time Mage, but I mean, she compresses time, obviously. She's a Time Mage, and with all the cosmic aspects of that game as well, Final Fantasy VIII definitely redeems Time Mages in my opinion. Now, whatever you think about Ultimecia or Final Fantasy VIII is your own, but the Time Mage is definitely given the spotlight in this game, and I love it. Now, beyond Final Fantasy VIII, time magic does appear in most of the Final Fantasy games in some way, shape, or form, especially where the Ivalice games are involved. In the recent remaster of Final Fantasy XII, The Zodiac Age, which came out on PS4, there is a Time Battle Mage, which just made me giddy to see. Sadly though, the Time Mage doesn't make any more real appearances in the MMOs of Final Fantasy XI or XIV. One could make the argument, I guess, that the Astrologian is our Time Mage in Final Fantasy XIV, but I don't know. While it's similar in tone, it works in a completely different way, and really isn't a true Time Mage as we would know them to be traditionally. But all that said, I do love the Time Mage, and I'm so excited whenever they pop up in whatever games that they do. And you know what? I think that's a good place to end it there, actually. And I want to know, what do you think of Time Mages? Are you apathetic about them? Do you enjoy them? Do you wish we could see more Time Mages? Let me know in the comments below. And if you guys enjoy this, feel free to like, comment, and if you're really crazy for whatever reason, maybe even sub. And I appreciate that you do support me in this massive Final Fantasy project. And as always, if you want to share this around, please be my guest. Otherwise, until next time, Crystal Warriors, keep on gaming.